Archaeologists discovered something strange in a cave in France. It was a creature that had a human body. And it kind of stood upright like a normal human being, but not quite. Then it had the tail of a wolf. Weird. And the head of a deer with very long antlers. So it was a hybrid. And this was the first time archaeologists discovered a hybrid. Of course, it wasn't a real creature. It was a painting or a drawing on the wall of the cave. This is the sorcerer of Trois Freres Cave. And it's dated 12,000 BC, which means it's very old. And as of now, it's the first hybrid that's ever been drawn. And it gives us some evidence of something different compared to what they used to draw in the past. All the drawings show animals and people. These are normal things. But the hybrid was quite weird. What we see here is that human beings had started to develop a consciousness, which is somehow like a state of spirituality, where they started to look at themselves and they realized that they could tap into supernatural power. And we learn today that hybrids in art represent some form of transformation, where parts of an animal and human being come together to form something supernatural. Today we look at the Baphomet, the Cherubim, Sphinx, Lamassu, Egyptian gods, which are also hybrids sometimes. My name is Jacqueline Amon. Stay with me and welcome to my channel. Tens of thousands of years ago, it's believed that humans existed as animals. Not that they looked like animals, but the way they behaved was mostly about survival, which means they only thought of hunting, eating well, protecting themselves from danger, sleeping, and existing. But something began to change after years. They started looking at themselves in a different sense compared to animals. They started asking questions like, who am I? What am I here to do? Is there more to life than just existing? And even having the concept of a past and a future, where they can think of the consequences of their decisions. There's a balance where a human being has to have aspects of the animal nature and the human nature. The animal nature makes you respect your feelings and your natural instincts, while the human nature makes you think. You use your brain and you reason and see how some actions can lead to certain consequences. That's where the hybrid comes in. In mysticism or spirituality, there are people known as shamans or prophets who are very gifted. They can access their animal nature and see the spiritual world. These are the people who, let's say, they tell you what's going to happen in the future, or they help you to make decisions. Maybe prophets, diviners, all these people who access the spiritual world. When you access your spiritual world, you're using your animal nature because you've put your ego to rest. It means that your brain isn't involved. And there are things that people use, for example, music like drums, chants, silence to meditate, maybe the way monks do. And they access the animal nature. I'm thinking of an example of maybe, let's say, a church, a charismatic church, where people speak in tongues and they fall to the ground and they have different experiences. So let's imagine we are in a big church. Then in the front, somebody has fainted. And as the music gets more emotional and maybe people are praying, there are people at the back speaking in tongues. Then there are others crying and jumping and all that. This is what we call the animal nature, because they're not getting embarrassed or trying to overthink about what they're doing. They are free to do what they want to do. Now, just imagine if one of these people, maybe somebody at the front, fainted. And while they were in that state of being half asleep, they got dreams or visions where they saw something that was going to influence the world. Okay, let's say they know who's going to be the president of the country. Now when this person who had fainted comes back to life, they have to communicate what they saw using words and trying to make sense of the things they saw. Maybe there were specific colors or different things, because sometimes the dreams are not reality. This person comes to the human nature to communicate what's going to happen. This is basically the concept of a hybrid. And when you saw the picture of the sorcerer of Trois Freres, it was showing a shaman who was transforming from one thing to another. It's like there was a balance. It's not really a balance because there's an element of confusion, but it's like the animal nature was active and the human nature was also active. That's why there was a hybrid. The Baphomet is a concept or a symbol that was invented by a Frenchman called Eliphas Levi in the 19th century. In the beginning, when Eliphas came up with this concept, it wasn't for occult, but you'll see later it will start being the symbol for Satanism. The origins were in Kabbalah, alchemy, tarot, and different types of mysticism. But later it's adopted into Satanism. It has a goat's head, the body of a human being, and feet of a goat. Then the body isn't male or female, it's a transgender or hermaphrodite. That means it has qualities of male or female. Then it has wings. The idea here is of duality: male, female, animal, human, above and below, because you can see the hands are going up and down. Why the goat? Why not a cow or a donkey or other things? But you see, a goat is special. If you want to depict rebellion, vitality, which the goat has, the sense of being in the wild but not really in the wild, because sometimes it's like goats are free and they do what they want, they just go to the wilderness, but they are also domesticated.
Did you know that goats are often depicted as symbols of the devil? It's interesting to note that many horror movies portray goats as representative of evil. Let us dive into why this is the case. 30 seconds sexy brain. The reason why the goat has become a demonic animal is due to its religious background. Throughout history, goats have been associated with negative connotations, and this association can be traced back to various cultural and religious beliefs. The Bible has long used the goat to represent evil in contrast to good. Those who follow Jesus are represented as lambs, and those who don't as goats. Religion has influenced many artists in the past to create artwork depicting goats as demons. Not only that, but Pan, the mischievous and playful son of Hermes in Greek mythology, also shape-shifted to a form of a goat.
In a hybrid being, when the animal is the head and the human is the body, it means animal instincts are more important than intellect or the human ego. And you see, in this case of the Baphomet, our feelings are more important. We just do what we want. That's why the animal is the head. In mysticism or in spirituality, the wings always represent transcendence. They're able to transcend and go to different spiritual levels because of the knowledge that they get from their human experiences. It has nothing to do with God or a spiritual entity. They use their knowledge to go higher. So the wings make them fly to different levels in spirituality. From the Baphomet, let's talk about the Cherubim. There's a prophet called Ezekiel who describes the cherubim, and it's recorded in the Bible. The cherubim were and are a type of angels that guard where God is and where human beings are. So they're like the in-between or the mediators. Ezekiel describes a hybrid cherub that was made up of a lion, an ox, a human being, and an eagle, all in one creature. And each of these animals, including the human, had wings. Very strange. Easily we can say that these cherubim had superior knowledge, but their knowledge came from God, unlike that of the Baphomet that comes from human beings. So the cherubim have obedience to a higher power. The animals here are based on the characters of these animals. The reason why I thought it would be nice to talk about the cherubim is because of what they do. It's like the cherubim protect human beings from God's power. God can only be around clean spirits. For example, there's a story in the Bible where somebody touched the Ark of the Covenant accidentally.
So David gathered 30,000 men, music filled the air, and the people celebrated with dancing and shouting. The ark was placed on a brand new cart, guided by Abinadab's sons, Uzzah and Ahio. The crowd rejoiced, drums beat, harps played. But then, in the middle of the journey, the oxen stumbled. The ark shook violently as if it might fall to the ground. Uzzah didn't hesitate. Out of instinct, he stretched out his hand and touched the ark to keep it from falling. But suddenly, everything stopped. The music, the shouting, the celebration. In an instant, God's anger was kindled. Uzzah fell dead beside the ark. The people froze in fear. David himself was shocked, trembling at the power and holiness of God. He realized this wasn't just about good intentions. It was about God's command. The ark was never meant to be carried on a cart. It was to be borne only by consecrated Levites on their shoulders.
There's an interesting story in the book of Genesis and Enoch that's also found in Mesopotamian mythology. It starts with angels or watchers admiring women on earth. They decide to go to the earth and take women as their wives, and they procreate, and their children are called Nephilim, which are giants. When the Nephilim came to the earth, they gave people superior knowledge about technology, using metals, ornaments, and different things that would be necessary in creating civilizations. When the timelines of the stories of Genesis and Enoch are compared to the Mesopotamian mythology, where civilizations actually started, they blend. So it's like different cultures kept this story and they told these stories later, but similar things happened. Also, in Mesopotamian mythology, now these watchers were a hybrid. They were hybrids of humans and fish, because they were given knowledge that was found deep below. It was about depth, and the body was that of a fish, while the head was that of a human being, which in this case represents knowledge. When the God that sent the watchers to the earth realized that the Apkallu are giving people too much knowledge than what was allowed, he decided to get rid of them. That's why there was a flood. And you see, even in Genesis and Enoch, there was a flood after the Nephilim were born and they were on earth causing chaos. In Egyptian mythology and also Greek mythology, there are many hybrids like Horus, Anubis, and many others. You've seen the Sphinx, the one in Egypt, and there's also a Sphinx in Greek mythology. Then there's the Lamassu. They protect spaces where knowledge is kept. For example, the tombs or spaces where people meet to discuss things. The Sphinx isn't a spiritual symbol. It's mostly about what it represents, which is knowledge. And you see the head is at the top because human nature is more important. Intellect, ego, reasoning, reflection, it's more important than the body. And the body is that of an animal, which is a lion. Lions represent bravery and authority. That's why it's a good blend of human intellect and bravery, thus the protection of knowledge. Well, that's all for today.